I'm Madeline, 32, a social worker, and the bone-deep exhaustion finally hit me sitting alone in my car after another brutal 12-hour shift. My phone chimed, the family group chat always buzzing. Mom's message popped up first, something mundane about Christmas dinner plans with my sister Taylor's fiancé. Then the follow-up text landed like ice water. We won't have room for you and Kaylee at the table this year. Seconds later, Taylor added, but you can still cater and drop it off, right? Oh, and Dad needs his $1,500 golf clubs. Staring at the glowing screen, the cold, hard truth finally crystallized. To them, I wasn't family. I was just the help. That text message wasn't a shock. Not really. It was just the latest verse in a song I'd been hearing my whole life. Growing up in Lake Forest, just north of Chicago, our family looked like something clipped from a magazine. Dad George built his real estate empire one high-rise at a time. Mom Stephanie curated art for private clients and dabbled in charity galas. We had the sprawling house, the manicured lawn, the membership at the right club. Perfect on the outside. Inside, though, it was always two different worlds. There was Taylor's world, and then there was mine. Taylor, my younger sister, was born sparkling. She had the easy charm, the effortless style, the knack for saying exactly what people wanted to hear. She was the one who got the lead in the school play, the one whose equestrian trophies filled the display cabinet. Mom and Dad orbited her like she was the Sunday. Her minor triumphs were family celebrations. Her setbacks were met with endless resources and support. I was the quiet one, the responsible one, the one who got good grades, followed the rules, and tried not to cause any trouble. My achievements were expected, noted with a brief nod, before the conversation inevitably shifted back to Taylor's latest social coup or travel plan. I remember when I was 12, I won the regional science fair. Dad glanced at the ribbon and said, "Good job, Maddie. Keep those grades up." That same week, Taylor got an honorable mention in a local art contest, and suddenly the house was filled with flowers, and Mom was hosting a celebratory brunch for her art class friends. It wasn't that they were unkind, not usually. It was more like I operated on a different frequency, one they didn't quite tune into. My passion wasn't horses or parties. It was people understanding them, helping them. When I decided to study social work, you could feel the quiet disappointment. "Are you sure, darling?" Mom had asked. "It's admirable, but not exactly lucrative." Dad was more blunt. "How are you going to build a life on that Madeline look at Taylor networking, making connections in marketing? That's how the world works. You know, in psychology, they talk about this dynamic, the golden child and the scapegoat, or maybe in our case, the invisible child. It's not really about love, they say, but about control, about parents managing their own anxieties. Taylor was placed in this beautiful golden cage. She got all the praise, all the resources, but only as long as she performed exactly as expected, reflected the image they wanted. Me, I was pushed out to the land of exile, emotionally speaking. I carried the weight of being different, the one who didn't quite fit the family brand. But here's the paradox. In that exile, I found freedom. Freedom from the crushing weight of their expectations. It's strange, isn't it? The golden cage can be more suffocating than exile. The one inside never learns they have wings. The one banished has no choice but to figure out how to fly. And then came Kaylee, my beautiful, brilliant daughter. When she was diagnosed with autism at age 4, the subtle discomfort my family had always shown towards my choices solidified into something colder, more like embarrassment. Suddenly, family events became strategic operations. Dinners where Kaylee and I were seated at the far end of the table. Vacations we weren't invited on because it might be too much for Kaylee, or maybe too much for them. Kaylee experiences the world with this incredible intensity, noticing details and patterns others miss. She can tell you the migratory path of every bird that visits our backyard. But sometimes loud noises or unexpected changes overwhelm her. She needs routine. She needs understanding. To my family, her stimming her need for quiet space, her honest, unfiltered observations, they weren't quirks of a unique mind. They were social liabilities. Problems to be managed hidden away when company came over, especially the right kind of company like Cole's family, apparently. It wasn't just the big things, the diagnosis, the obvious exclusions. It was the 1,000 little cuts, the constant expectation that my time, my energy, my resources were communal property, while Taylor's were her own. Looking back, it's like I was running a nonprofit organization called Keep the Family Happy, and I was the only employee working 24 divided by 7 with no pay and definitely no benefits. Remember Taylor's law school graduation party mom decided it had to be a catered affair at their house for 75 people. 75. But catered in our family usually meant I did the catering. I spent 3 weeks planning the menu, coordinating rentals, prepping food after my 12-hour shifts at the hospital. I took 2 precious vacation days just to cook and set up. The party was a success, of course. Taylor floated around in a new designer dress, accepting compliments. Mom and Dad beamed, taking credit for hosting such a flawless event. My contribution, a brief, "Thanks, Maddie." The mini quiches were a hit from Mom as I cleared plates at 1 a.m. No offer to help clean, no acknowledgement of the cost of ingredients that I'd quietly absorbed, definitely no share of the praise. Then there was Dad's gallbladder surgery last spring. It wasn't major, but recovery took time, and he needed rides to follow-up appointments at the clinic downtown. Taylor was swamped closing a marketing deal. Mom claimed driving in city traffic gave her anxiety. So who took unpaid days off work, rearranged my already packed schedule, and sat for hours in waiting rooms? Me. Dad wasn't exactly grateful. He complained about the parking garage fees, criticized my driving, and acted like my presence was merely his due. When I mentioned I had to use unpaid leave, he just grunted and said, "Well, that's what family does." But it only ever seemed to apply to me. And Mom's art openings, oh, those were special. She curated shows for her clients a few times a year, always insisting on serving elegant little bites. Translation, I spent entire weekends making elaborate appetizers, puff pastry things, tiny skewers, complex dips, all on my own dime, delivered perfectly arranged on platters I also had to provide. The guests would rave. Mom would accept the compliments, graciously mentioning her talented daughter in a vague way that implied Taylor might have helped. Taylor, meanwhile, usually showed up late, mingled for 20 minutes, and left early for drinks with friends. The emotional cost was harder to quantify, but heavier. It was the constant juggling the feeling of being perpetually on call, the knowledge that my own needs always came last. It was the exhaustion of managing schedules, anticipating needs, smoothing over conflicts, all while my own life, my career, my daughter, my own well-being felt like it was running on fumes. Taylor, meanwhile, floated through life. Her rent was subsidized by Mom and Dad after she decided her first real job was stifling her creativity. They co-signed for her new Audi when she complained her old car wasn't brand appropriate. Her vacations to Bali and Milan were documented extensively on Instagram, funded by mysterious bonuses I suspected came directly from Dad's generosity fund, aka the account I wasn't allowed to ask about. It wasn't just the money, it was the narrative. Taylor was the exciting one, the one living a vibrant life, taking risks. I was the steady, predictable one. Reliable. Which, in our family's language, meant boring, available, expected to pick up the pieces. My colleague Rachel, another social worker who understood burnout better than anyone, started noticing the pattern. We shared an office, and she often overheard my strained phone calls trying to coordinate family logistics. "Madeline," she said, one day after I got off a particularly frustrating call trying to arrange transportation for Mom to a doctor's appointment because Taylor was too busy. "Do they ever, do anything for you?" The question hung in the air. I tried to think of an example, a time they'd stepped up for me without being asked, without it being a transaction. I couldn't. "It's just how my family is," I mumbled, feeling defensive for reasons I couldn't explain. Rachel just gave me a knowing look. "Okay," she said softly, "but that doesn't mean it's right." Her words planted a seed, a tiny seed of doubt in the narrative I'd accepted for so long. Maybe this wasn't normal. Maybe it wasn't okay. I let the calls go to voicemail for 2 days. Voicemails filled with escalating panic guilt trips and outright demands disguised as concern. Then finally, Mom caught me during my lunch break at the hospital cafeteria. Her name flashed on the screen, and I almost declined it again, but some part of me needed to hear what she'd say. "Madeline," finally, her voice was tight, thin. "Do you have any idea how worried we've been? We thought something had happened." "Worried about what, Mom?" "That your free caterer went AWOL." "Worried about you," she insisted, though the edge in her voice betrayed the lie. "You haven't responded to anything. Taylor needs to finalize the menu for Christmas. Cole's family has some particular tastes, apparently. She needs your recipes for the crab puffs and that brie thing you do." So the story was holding Cole's family the convenient scapegoat for their own choices. "Mom," I kept my voice level calm. "Where exactly are Kaylee and I supposed to eat these crab puffs while Cole's family enjoys the formal dinner?" Silence. Then a sigh, heavy and theatrical. "Madeline, don't make this more difficult than it needs to be. You understand the situation. David's family—" "Oh, wait, Cole's family," she corrected herself, stumbling over the lie. "They're traditional. From old money. It's just complicated this year." Complicated. The family code word for we're prioritizing appearances over you. "So Kaylee's autism is too complicated for Cole's traditional family," I pushed, wanting to hear her say it. "It's not about that," she snapped back, irritation finally breaking through. "It's about making things run smoothly, ensuring everyone is comfortable with Kaylee's challenges. It just might be better for everyone if you handled the kitchen duties this year while we manage the formal dining." Kitchen duties. Like hired help. And there it was, plain as day. That insidious creep of manipulation, disguised as love, as practicality. There's a razor-thin line between caring and controlling, and sometimes the word family is used to blur it right out of existence. When someone says, "I'm doing this because I love you," or "this is for the good of the family," right before they ask you to shrink yourself to sacrifice your needs, your dignity, that's not love talking. That's control wearing a mask. Real love, genuine care, it makes your world bigger. It asks, what do you need? Control makes your world smaller, forces you into a box built by someone else's expectations. Control says, this is what you must do. Recognizing that difference, that's the first step to getting free, isn't it? And hearing Mom's words, it was like a light switch, finally flipped on in a room I'd been stumbling around in for decades. So to be clear, I said, my voice dangerously quiet, I cook the entire meal for 12 people, deliver it, probably serve it, and then Kaylee and I eat where exactly in the car? Or maybe you were just expecting us to go home. Don't be dramatic, Madeline, she sighed again, that familiar tone of weary patience she used whenever I failed to fall in line. You know we love you both. It's what works best this year. For Taylor's sake. This is so important for her making a good impression. Always for Taylor's sake. Never for mine, never for Kaylee's. And what about Dad's golf clubs? I asked, shifting gears slightly. Am I still expected to handle that errand too? The $1,500 gift for the man who doesn't think my daughter deserves a seat at his table? That's a separate issue, Mom said, quickly dismissing it. Your father's handling that. The point is, Taylor needs your help with the dinner. She's already stressed about meeting Cole's parents. Right, because Taylor's stress was always the priority. My stress, my daughter's feelings, my own dignity, those were just inconveniences to be managed or ignored. I see, I said, and for the first time I really did. I saw the whole pattern, the whole manipulative game laid bare. Well, Mom, you and Taylor will have to figure out the catering situation yourselves this year. Kaylee and I won't be available. What do you mean you won't be available? Her voice sharpened with panic. Madeline, this isn't optional. It's Christmas. It's family. Exactly, I said, taking a slow sip of my now cold coffee. It's Christmas, and I'm spending it with my family. Just Kaylee and me. Somewhere we're actually wanted. Before she could launch into another round of guilt or demands, I ended the call. No goodbye. No apologies. Just the quiet click of disconnecting not just the phone line, but years of toxic obligation. It felt less like hanging up and more like cutting a cord. And damn, it felt good. I picked Kaylee up from her after-school program, the knot in my stomach tightening as she launched into a detailed, enthusiastic monologue about our Christmas plans. She had her construction paper list clutched in her hand, complete with crayon drawings. Okay, Mama, she began, strapping herself meticulously into her booster seat, checking the buckle twice like she always did. Weekend plans. Saturday morning we make the gingerbread house kit Grandma Stephanie sent. Oh, the irony. Grandma sends the kit, but doesn't save you a seat. Then Saturday afternoon, stringing popcorn and cranberries for the tree. Sunday reindeer brownies with pretzel antlers. Very important. And we need extra sparkly red sugar this year. Her joy was so pure, so untainted by the adult messiness I was navigating. She lived in a world where Christmas meant magic, family meant warmth, and promises were kept. How could I possibly explain that the people who were supposed to love her most unconditionally saw her beautiful, unique mind as a social inconvenience? That sounds like a perfect plan, sweetie, I managed, forcing brightness into my voice. We'll need to make a very precise shopping list for those antlers. Kaylee nodded seriously. Precision is key. Also, Mama, she paused, tilting her head, as she studied my face in the rearview mirror, your eyes look a little bit like rainy days today. Are you feeling cloudy? That was Kaylee. While my own family struggled to see past her diagnosis, she saw straight through my carefully constructed facade. She could read micro-expressions, shifts in tone, the subtle energies that most people missed entirely. She noticed the slight tremor in my hand as I adjusted the radio, the way my smile didn't quite reach my eyes. This brilliant, empathetic child, the one my family wanted to hide away, was more attuned to emotional reality than any of them. Just a little tired from work bug, I said, meeting her gaze in the mirror, but thinking about Christmas baking is making the clouds go away. She seemed to accept this, turning her attention back to her list. Good, because we also need to remember the extra large marshmallows for snowman hot chocolate. and watch Elf twice. As we drove home through the suburban streets past houses already twinkling with festive lights, Kaylee continued her planning. She talked about which cousins she hoped to see, blissfully unaware they'd be at a dinner she wasn't invited to. She debated the optimal placement for the light-up reindeer on our small front lawn. Every word was like a tiny pinprick against the raw wound of my family's betrayal. How could they not see her? How could they look at this incredible child, the one who could identify bird calls from 2 blocks away, who built intricate Lego cities with complex social structures, who felt empathy so deeply it sometimes overwhelmed her, and see only a problem and embarrassment, something to be managed? That evening, as Kaylee meticulously arranged her dinosaur figures by era on the living room floor, narrating their complex interactions, the reality of the situation settled over me with crushing weight. This wasn't just about me being excluded or undervalued anymore. It was about them rejecting my child. It was about teaching Kaylee implicitly or explicitly that she wasn't worthy, that her differences made her less than. I wouldn't let that happen. I couldn't shield her from every hurt the world might throw her way, but I damn well wouldn't let her own family be the source of that pain. I wouldn't let their prejudice dim her light or make her question her place in the world. Watching her line up a stegosaurus and a triceratops for a peace summit, her brow furrowed in concentration, my resolve hardened from a simmering anger into a cold, clear certainty. For years I had bent myself into knots, trying to fit their mold, trying to earn their approval, trying to keep the peace. I had absorbed the slights, swallowed the disappointments, made excuses for their behavior. For me, but this wasn't just about me anymore. This was about Kaylee. This was about the kind of mother I needed to be for her. And that mother didn't politely accept crumbs from a table she wasn't invited to. That mother didn't teach her daughter that love was conditional or that acceptance depended on hiding parts of yourself. No, that mother built her own damn table somewhere beautiful, somewhere welcoming, somewhere where Kaylee's light wasn't just tolerated, but celebrated. The hurt was still there, a deep ache under my ribs, but something else was growing stronger, a fierce, protective fire. A determination to give my daughter the Christmas she deserved, free from judgment, full of wonder, and defined entirely by our own joy. They thought they were sidelining us, managing a potential embarrassment. They had no idea they had just handed me the permission I needed to finally break free. The emails and spreadsheets could wait. Tonight I had a different kind of planning to do. That evening, after Kaylee was asleep, dreaming of sugar plums or maybe pterodactyls, I sat at my small kitchen table, the glow of my laptop screen illuminating the room. Kaylee had left one of her drawings beside my planner, a vibrant depiction of a cable car climbing a ridiculously steep hill labeled San Francisco Trip Someday. She'd seen it in a book weeks ago and declared it the most exciting form of transportation ever invented. San Francisco. The idea sparked faint at first, then growing brighter. Why not? Why should our Christmas be defined by their exclusion? Why couldn't we create our own tradition somewhere far away from judgmental eyes and obligatory crab puffs? My fingers flew across the keyboard. Christmas in San Francisco. Images flooded the screen. Union Square shimmering with lights, Ghirardelli Square decked out in holiday splendor, the Golden Gate Bridge potentially draped in festive fog, and cable cars, lots of cable cars. Then I saw it, the Fairmont, perched atop Nob Hill like a grand old dame dripping with history and elegance. They had a Christmas at the top package, luxurious room festive teas, maybe even a glimpse of Santa. It looked like the exact opposite of eating leftovers in my car outside my parents' house. It looked like magic. The price tag wasn't insignificant. $5,000 for the suite, the train tickets, the activities. $5,000. For a moment, the ingrained guilt, the voice that sounded suspiciously like my father's asking if that was a sensible expenditure, surfaced. Then I did the math. The $1,500 Dad expected for his top-of-the-line golf clubs. Another $1,000 easily for gifts, for Mom Taylor Cole assorted aunts, uncles, cousins I barely saw. Plus the cost of ingredients, platters, and my time for catering a dinner for 12 ungrateful people. It came surprisingly close. Maybe even less if I factored in the therapy I wouldn't need after subjecting myself to their Christmas dinner. This wasn't an irresponsible splurge. It was a reallocation of resources. My resources, redirected from funding their expectations to funding my daughter's joy and my own sanity. My cursor hovered over the Book Now button. Non-refundable. No turning back. This wasn't just booking a hotel. It was drawing a line in the sand, burning a bridge, choosing a different future. I took a deep breath, pictured Kaylee's face lighting up at the sight of those cable cars, and clicked. Confirmation. Your San Francisco Christmas adventure is booked. A wave washed over me, part adrenaline, part terror, mostly sheer exhilarating liberation. I wanted to laugh out loud. I wanted to tell someone who would understand someone, who wouldn't immediately ask if I'd thought about how Mom would feel. I grabbed my phone and texted Rachel, my colleague, my friend, my unofficial therapist. Guess what I just did? Her reply came back almost instantly. Please tell me you didn't agree to cater that dinner. Even better, I typed, grinning. Booked first-class Amtrak and a suite at the Fairmont in San Francisco for Christmas week. Kaylee and I are escaping. Her response was a string of celebratory emojis followed by, yes, Madeline. Yes, it is about damn time. Best Christmas present you could ever give yourself and that amazing kid. I am so proud of you. Her validation, so freely given, so enthusiastic, felt like a warm blanket. It wasn't crazy. It wasn't selfish. It was necessary. It was right. I looked at the confirmation email again, the details shimmering on the screen. San Francisco, the Fairmont, just me and Kaylee. A real Christmas built on our terms. The fear hadn't entirely vanished, but now it was overshadowed by a thrilling sense of possibility. Let them figure out their own damn turkey. We were going to ride a cable car. The Amtrak train slid out of Chicago Union Station, smooth as silk, leaving the gray cityscape behind. Kaylee pressed her nose against the window, utterly captivated. Look, Mama, the buildings are getting smaller. We're going super fast. Her excitement was a physical force, radiating pure joy. We had a private roomette, small but cozy, and the rhythmic clack of the train on the tracks felt soothing like a lullaby carrying us away from the impending family storm. I leaned back against the seat, a sense of unreality washing over me. For the first time in as long as I could remember, I wasn't anticipating a holiday filled with passive aggression, unspoken demands, and the low-grade anxiety of managing everyone else's expectations. I wasn't bracing myself for the subtle and not-so-subtle ways Kaylee might be slighted or misunderstood. I was just going, traveling westward with my daughter towards something bright and unknown. Kaylee spent hours documenting the journey in her sketchbook, drawing the changing landscapes, the other passengers. She glimpsed in the dining car the intricate details of our tiny room. She narrated her drawings with the seriousness of a seasoned travel journalist. Observation number 7. The man in the red sweater reads very fast, possibly a speed reader. Hypothesis. He has many books to finish before California. Meanwhile, back in Illinois, I could only imagine the chaos unfolding. Mom probably realizing the 15-pound turkey wasn't magically defrosting itself. Dad discovering the absence of his new golf clubs under the tree. Taylor attempting to delegate catering tasks to whom exactly? Aunt Catherine arriving with her Jell-O mold expecting a perfectly orchestrated family tableau, only to find the lead actress and head chef had gone. Off script. The thought didn't bring me malicious pleasure, just a distant, weary confirmation that I had made the right choice. Our arrival in San Francisco felt like stepping into another world. The air was cool and crisp, carrying the faint scent of the bay. We took a taxi up the steep hills, Kaylee, gasping at every incline, convinced we were on the world's biggest roller coaster. The Fairmont Hotel on Nob Hill was even grander than the pictures. A uniformed doorman greeted us with a warm smile, whisking away our luggage. The lobby soared upward, adorned with colossal Christmas trees and garlands that glittered under opulent chandeliers. Kaylee spun in a slow circle, taking it all in. "Mama," she whispered, her voice full of awe. "It smells like gingerbread and fancy." Check-in was seamless. No one blinked an eye at a single mom and her daughter checking into a luxurious suite. The concierge gave Kaylee a map of the hotel's holiday decorations and pointed out the giant gingerbread house in the lobby she could visit later. Here, we weren't an inconvenience. We were just guests, welcome and expected. Our suite overlooked the city, a breathtaking panorama of lights twinkling against the deepening twilight. Kaylee immediately claimed the window seat, pointing out landmarks she recognized from her books. There's the pointy building, Transamerica Pyramid Observation, number 23. San Francisco has excellent pointy architecture. Later, curled up in plush hotel robes after ordering room service, fancy pancakes for Kaylee, a ridiculously decadent burger for me. I finally turned my phone back on. It exploded. Dozens of missed calls. Texts filled with panic, then anger, then wounded accusations. Mom Madeline, call me now. The caterer didn't show up. Followed by, where are you, Dad? This is unacceptable behavior. You've ruined Christmas. Taylor, seriously, you just left. Cole's parents are here. What am I supposed to do? Aunt Catherine Stephanie seems distressed. Is everything all right, dear? But amidst the barrage, there were others. Cousin Hunter heard you escaped the North Shore vortex. Legend, send pics. Natalie neighbor Mrs. Patterson told me. You went on an adventure. Good for you two. Let me know if you need anything when you get back. Rachel colleague, thinking of you and Kaylee. Hope you're having the best time. Ignore the noise. Kaylee looked up from her pancakes. Are Grandma and Grandpa still cloudy? They're experiencing some turbulence, I said carefully, because they made choices that had consequences they didn't expect. Just then, the phone rang. Taylor's name flashed. I hesitated, then answered, putting it on speaker but keeping the volume low. Madeline Taylor's voice was small, shaky. Nothing like her usual confident executive tone. You have to tell me what you did with the turkey recipe. There is no recipe, Taylor. I just cook it. Besides, I thought you were handling dinner. Handling it. Her voice cracked. It was a catastrophe. The turkey was raw and smoking. At the same time, Mom had a full meltdown around 4 p.m. Dad ended up ordering 20 pizzas. Pizza, Madeline, for Christmas dinner with Cole's parents. I stayed silent, picturing the scene. They were polite. Taylor continued, but you could tell they thought we were complete lunatics. Cole kept trying to smooth things over, but it was mortifying. And then her voice dropped lower. Then Cole's mother asked why the regular family helper wasn't there. Family helper, not sister, not daughter. And what did you say? I couldn't lie anymore, Maddie. This was new. Taylor never stumbled over lies, I told her. I told her you were supposed to cater, but we told you not to come to the actual dinner because we were worried about Kaylee. There was a long pause. And she looked horrified, Taylor whispered. Cole looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. Turns out, Cole's younger brother is autistic Madeline. High support needs. His parents are huge advocates in Connecticut. They were appalled that we would exclude Kaylee. Cole had apparently argued with Dad about it when he first heard the plan, insisting Kaylee should be there, but Dad and we shut him down. We told him his parents wouldn't understand that it was better this way. The lie wasn't just to me. It was about Cole's family. It was entirely fabricated by my own parents and sister to mask their own shame and inconvenience. Why, Taylor? I asked the question barely audible. Why lie like that? She started crying then, not her usual crocodile tears, but real, ragged sobs. Because I was scared. Because meeting Cole's perfect family felt like so much pressure. Because having Kaylee there, it felt like one more thing that could go wrong. One more way. I could look bad. Because her voice dropped to a whisper. Because sometimes I've been so jealous of you, Maddie. You just do things. You built your own life. You handle everything you have, Kaylee. You never seem to need their approval the way I do. And I hated you for it sometimes. So I went along with it. With Dad. With Mom. It was easier to pretend Kaylee was the problem than to admit that we were. The confession hung in the air, heavy and raw. The twist wasn't just that they lied, but why they lied. It wasn't just cruelty. It was cowardice, insecurity, and a jealousy I'd never suspected, all wrapped up in the toxic package of our family dynamic. After the call ended, I just sat there, phone still in hand, staring out at the glittering lights of San Francisco spread below. Taylor's tearful confession echoed in the quiet luxury of the suite. It wasn't Cole's family. It was them. My parents, my sister. Their shame, their social anxiety, their deeply ingrained belief that Kaylee, and by extension me, weren't good enough for the right kind of people. The lie wasn't just cruel. It was cowardly. They hadn't even owned their prejudice, instead projecting it onto strangers. Kaylee looked up from her detailed drawing of a sea lion she'd seen in a book about Pier 39. Was that Aunt Taylor? Is she cloudy too? Yeah, Bug, I said, my voice sounding distant even to myself. She's very cloudy today. Maybe she needs pancakes. Kaylee suggested a practical solution from her 7-year-old perspective. Pancakes make clouds go away. If only it were that simple. I watched her return to her drawing, her brow furrowed in concentration as she added precise whiskers to the sea lion. She was so present, so absorbed in her world, completely unaware of the complex, ugly dynamics playing out hundreds of miles away, dynamics centered sickeningly around her very existence. For years I'd made excuses. It was poor planning. They were stressed. They didn't understand. But Taylor's confession stripped away all the comforting justifications. This wasn't accidental oversight. It was deliberate erasure. They hadn't just forgotten to set a place for us. They had actively decided we didn't belong. Because Kaylee wasn't neurotypical. Because I wasn't married to someone wealthy or important. because we didn't fit the perfect family portrait they wanted to project. Sitting there watching the fog roll in over the bay, I thought about what it truly meant to be unseen. People often think the opposite of love is hate, but it's not. Hate, at least, is a form of recognition. It acknowledges your existence, your impact, even if it's negative. The real opposite of love, the truly soul-crushing thing, is indifference. Indifference is a quiet erasure. It turns you into a ghost in your own life haunting rooms where people look right through you. My family didn't hate me. Not really. They just didn't see me. Didn't see Kaylee. Our struggles, our joys, our very beings were inconvenient, secondary, easily dismissed when something more important, like social standing or avoiding discomfort, came along. The journey then, I realized, wasn't about forcing them to finally see us. It was about seeing ourselves, recognizing our own value, even when standing completely in their shadow. The luxury of the Fairmont suite, the kindness of the staff, the easy acceptance we'd found here, it wasn't just a pleasant vacation. It was a stark contrast to the conditional acceptance I'd mistaken for love my whole life. The texts from Hunter, from Natalie, from Rachel, those felt more like family than the strained obligatory interactions I'd had with my parents and sister for years. Family wasn't just blood. It was respect. It was showing up. It was seeing someone truly seeing them and valuing them for who they are, not for who you wish they were. My parents and Taylor hadn't just failed Kaylee. They'd failed themselves, trapped in a cycle of judgment and fear. And Taylor, her confession of jealousy, added another layer of sadness. While I envied her easy path, she apparently envied my difficult freedom. We were both casualties of the same toxic system, just wounded in different ways. But sympathy didn't negate the need for boundaries. Understanding why they did it didn't excuse the what. My priority, my absolute non-negotiable North Star, was Kaylee. Protecting her, nurturing her spirit, ensuring she grew up knowing her worth, was inherent, not dependent on conforming to anyone else's expectations. That meant the dynamic had to change permanently. No more dropping everything for their manufactured crises, no more absorbing the cost of their choices, no more pretending their passive aggression was unintentional. Any future relationship would be on entirely different terms. Respect for Kaylee was paramount. Respect for me was mandatory. Honesty was non-negotiable. If they couldn't meet those basic conditions, then distance wasn't just an option. It was a necessity for our well-being. Maybe they would change. Maybe Taylor's tearful confession and the sheer embarrassment of the Christmas dinner disaster would be a catalyst. Maybe facing the truth about Cole's family, about their own prejudice, would force some introspection. Maybe. But I wouldn't hold my breath. And I wouldn't sacrifice our peace waiting for an apology that might never come, or worse, might come wrapped in further manipulation. I looked at Kaylee now, carefully coloring the water around her sea lion, a precise shade of cerulean blue. We had found our own definition of a perfect Christmas, far away from the cold judgments and conditional acceptance of Lake Forest. We had ridden cable cars, eaten fancy pancakes, and felt genuinely welcomed. We had built our own table right here in this room, overlooking the bay, and it was more than enough. It was everything. Checking out of the Fairmont felt different than checking in. Leaving wasn't an escape anymore. It felt like a deliberate step forward, carrying the newfound lightness of clarity and self-respect. Kaylee chattered excitedly about the sea lions we'd seen at Pier 39, already planning our next adventure. As the taxi took us back down those steep San Francisco hills toward the train station, I didn't feel the usual dread of returning to reality. I felt like I was bringing a new reality back with me. The months that followed weren't about dramatic confrontations or tearful reconciliations. They were quieter, more about the steady internal work of rebuilding. Kaylee and I settled back into our routine, but something fundamental had shifted. Our little apartment felt more like a sanctuary, less like a waiting room for family obligations. We started planning weekend adventures, exploring nearby state parks, visiting museums. Kaylee was interested in even just trying new baking recipes. Our world felt bigger, defined by our own interests and joy, not by the expectations of others. Mom sent a long, rambling email a few weeks after Christmas. It was full of justifications, lingering, hurt, and a tentative, awkward apology buried somewhere in the third paragraph. Dad sent a separate, shorter email, acknowledging misunderstandings and expressing hope for future civility. I read them both, recognized the small effort they represented, and replied with a single, clear message. I outlined the conditions under which limited contact might be possible, unconditional respect for Kaylee honesty in all communications, and absolutely no further financial or emotional demands disguised as family obligation. I made it clear that any violation would mean cutting contact again permanently. Taylor surprisingly emailed separately. She told me she'd started therapy. She didn't ask for forgiveness, just shared that the Christmas incident had forced her to confront patterns she'd been ignoring for years. It was a start. I didn't wait for their responses or transformations. I focused on building our life. Kaylee was thriving at school, her teachers, remarking on her confidence and unique insights. I found myself more present at work, more engaged with friends like Rachel, who had been such a steadfast ally. The weight of constantly trying to anticipate and manage my family's needs had lifted, freeing up energy I didn't even realize I possessed. I learned that choosing yourself isn't a one-time decision you make during a dramatic confrontation. It's a daily practice. It's saying no to things that drain you. It's prioritizing your own well-being and the well-being of those who truly depend on you, like Kaylee. It's recognizing that your worth isn't measured by how much you sacrifice, but by how authentically you live. The Fairmont trip wasn't just a vacation. It was the beginning of learning that I didn't need anyone else's permission to build my own table, to define my own happiness. And that table, built with self-respect and love for my daughter, felt infinitely more valuable than any seat I'd ever been denied. Have you ever had to make that difficult choice? To put your own well-being or your child's well-being above toxic family expectations? How did you navigate it? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about finding your strength and creating your own definition of family. Remember, you deserve a place where you're celebrated, not just tolerated.